The alien girl is afraid to marry a human until she meets him. Word count, 1200. Chapter 1. The Betrothed Stranger. The grand spires of the Velari Council Hall shimmered in pale indigo light, towering against the velvet sky of Taurian Prime. Inside the crystalline chambers, Ambassador Saravel Katir stood immobile before the high seat, her silver eyes narrowed ever so slightly, a minor display of emotion, but on Velari standards, practically a scream. She was being sentenced, not to death or exile, but to something far worse, marriage. To a human. Saravel had negotiated ceasefires, commanded deep space missions, and once held a dying envoy's hand while a son went nova. Yet nothing had prepared her for this. "You are the only viable candidate," said Archlord Verax with his usual cold precision. "The human leadership has agreed. The Union Pact must proceed for the sake of stability in the outer sectors. Humans are erratic, emotional. Their culture is immature." Saravel's voice remained neutral, but inside, her thoughts churned. "You are asking me to compromise the legacy of our bloodline. We are asking you to ensure peace." The Council's collective silence was louder than any protest. It was not a request. It never was. Earth. New Kyoto Diplomatic Complex. Elias Rourke hated suits. They itched, pinched, felt like the kind of things people wore to funerals or to get yelled at by admirals. He pulled at the collar, muttering something rude under his breath. "You clean up all right," said Chief Liaison Vega, handing him a glass of water. "Doesn't make it right," Elias grumbled. "I'm not a politician. I'm just the guy who figured out how to make quantum slipfold tech run on Earth-grade alloys and duct tape." "That's why we picked you," Vega smiled. "The Velari don't understand us. They think we're primitive lunatics. You prove them wrong." Elias scoffed, or prove them right. There were dozens of more polished candidates, but none had Elias' mix of technical brilliance, combat experience, and sheer stubborn humanity. He was unpredictable, and in the political theater of interstellar diplomacy, unpredictability was a kind of weapon. The formal reception was being held in the orbital Garden Dome, a symbol of shared terraforming tech between Velari and human engineers. Earth's delegation had tried to make it comfortable for their guests. The lighting was muted, gravity-balanced, even the music carefully algorithmically neutral. And yet, when she entered, the atmosphere shifted. Ambassador Saravel Katir moved like a statue in motion, flowing silver robes, hair braided in geometric symmetry, her expression composed to the millimeter. Every eye turned toward her, and every human in the room felt the weight of something ancient and austere. Elias exhaled. "So that's her." Saravel scanned the room. Her translator chip pinged discreetly. "Human male. Age 34. Elias Rourke. Unorthodox background. Decorated. Statistically volatile." Then their eyes met. For 1 second, neither spoke. Her gaze cool and assessing. His unguarded, curious, and infuriatingly amused. He stepped forward, extended a hand. "Ambassador Saravel. Elias Rourke. Nice to finally meet my betrothed." He grinned crookedly. She stared at the offered hand. "We do not engage in unnecessary physical contact." "Right," Elias said, dropping the hand. "Guess it's a good thing I wasn't going for a hug." A human aide laughed nervously. Saravel blinked once, the Velari equivalent of an eye roll. "You find amusement in discomfort?" she asked. "No," Elias replied, suddenly serious. "But I find it's easier to deal with the absurd if you laugh first. Otherwise, the absurd eats you alive." That was not in her cultural briefing. The reception unfolded with the grace of an awkward funeral. The humans tried too hard. The Velari didn't try at all. One ambassador compared Earth's cuisine to chemically processed lava foam. Another declined to sit because the chairs had backs. Saravel remained a silent, regal presence beside Elias, answering when spoken to, offering no more than necessary. But Elias was watching her. She was disciplined, yes, but also isolated. Not by duty, by fear. Not fear of him, but fear of losing something of herself in proximity to humans. He'd seen that look before, on soldiers before a drop, on kids staring down the barrel of something they couldn't control. He leaned toward her, voice low. "You didn't volunteer for this, did you?" Her eyes flicked to his. No. Me neither. Silence. I've read about your species, she said at last. You adapt. You innovate. But you are also dangerously impulsive. Why do you think you're suited for something like this? Elias tilted his head. Because I know what it's like to fight for something you don't believe in, and what it means when you finally do. That hit something. A flicker of recognition in her expression. Then a disruption. A Valari diplomat approached, holding a tray of ceremonial stones. Elias, trying to be polite, reached for one, a gesture he thought meant hospitality. The room fell into silence. Saravel's voice cut through it like frost. You must not touch the Harmstones unless invited. That is a sacred ritual of binding. Elias froze. Oh, crap. The Valari aide looked horrified. A human diplomat began sweating bullets. Saravel stepped between Elias and the tray. The diplomat hesitated, unsure. Then, to everyone's astonishment, she picked up one of the stones, a shimmering obsidian oval, and handed it to Elias. Gasps from both delegations. Elias blinked. Does this mean we're married now? No, she said coldly. It means I chose to prevent an international incident. Guess that's our first team effort. He smiled. Her lips twitched. The tiniest, briefest curl. A smile. No, impossible. Must have been a muscle twitch. Still, she didn't pull away when he stood beside her again. Later, as the reception wound down, Saravel stood at the viewport, watching Earth rotate beneath them, a swirl of blue and white, loud and beautiful. Elias joined her. You don't have to like this, he said softly. Hell, I don't even know if I like this. But I figure, if we've both got to be dragged into this circus, we might as well get to know the other animal in the tent. She turned her head slightly. Are all humans so irreverent? No, just the good ones. I have read that your species once built a faster-than-light engine using parts from a mining rig, a food processor, and a child's toy. True story, Elias said. We call it the slipfold buzzer. Saravel shook her head slowly. Insanity. Or ingenuity. For the first time, she allowed herself to truly study him, not as a political assignment, not as a genetic compromise, but as a man. Rough, scarred, unruly, but alive in a way her people had long forgotten how to be. Perhaps not as unsuitable as she thought. The alien girl is afraid to marry a human until she meets him. Chapter title: Tests of Compatibility. Word count: 1200. Chapter 2: Tests of Compatibility. The joint outpost Concord Station floated between Earth and Valari space, tethered only by treaties and tension. It was the first of its kind, a political experiment and a propaganda tool meant to showcase unity and cooperation. But beneath the chrome and banners, the structure creaked with strain, physical and diplomatic. Ambassador Saravel Katir disembarked with typical grace, her personal security detail fanning out with elegant precision. She surveyed the corridors with the cool detachment of someone inspecting a museum of chaos. Bright walls, a disorienting blend of human curves and Valari angles, pulsed with kinetic lighting and atmospheric modulation. Primitive fusion of aesthetics, she murmured. Beside her, Elias Rourke clutched a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. I call it modern ugly, but it grows on you. Like mold. She glanced sideways. Your irreverence is exhausting. You'll miss it when it's gone. They were here for the compatibility tour, a week-long gauntlet of joint exercises, diplomatic rituals, and cultural assessments, all designed to determine whether their union would hold. Privately, both suspected the tests were designed to make them fail. The first assessment took place in Habitat Dome 3, an artificial biome meant to simulate survival conditions on a terraformed colony world. A cultural exercise, supposedly. They were told to locate a series of waypoints and solve philosophical alignment tasks. Let me guess, Elias said, checking his scanner. You'll take the lead and pretend I'm not here. You are not here to lead, Saravel replied. You are here to observe, and not break anything. Elias raised an eyebrow. We'll see how long that lasts. They found the first waypoint under a glowing fungal canopy. A Valari drone projected a holographic riddle. A society prizes stability above all. Another prizes freedom. They must build a home together. What is its foundation? Saravel answered immediately. Order. Without it, construction collapses. Elias frowned. Nah. It's compromise. A house that doesn't flex breaks in the wind. Compromise leads to weakness. Order without empathy leads to tyranny. A pause. The drone chimed and moved on. Apparently, dual answers were acceptable. Saravel gave Elias a sharp look. You argue for argument's sake. I argue because I've seen what happens when people forget how. 2 hours in, a gravity fluctuation hit without warning. The dome flickered. Artificial gravity reversed. Then failed completely. Equipment tumbled through the air. Valari techs scrambled to stabilize systems, but the dome's hybrid infrastructure made control erratic. A young Valari assistant screamed. Her harness detached and sent her careening toward a power junction. Elias launched without hesitation. Rourke! Saravel barked, but it was too late. He caught the girl mid-flight and braced his feet against a service rail, absorbing the impact with a grunt. You okay? He asked. The girl nodded, wide-eyed. Saravel reached them seconds later. You acted without protocol. Again. And saved her life. Again. She opened her mouth, then shut it. He was right. Again. Still, she hated the way her pulse had jumped watching him launch into danger. Back in the station's shared embassy sector, they reviewed the incident logs. The Valari delegation was not pleased. Your actions were reckless, one counselor snapped over comms. The ambassador is not authorized for spontaneous intervention. Saravel surprised herself. He saved a life. That is authorization. There was silence, then an abrupt disconnect. Elias leaned back. I'm guessing I'm not winning points with the in-laws. Saravel stared at the console. You have a dangerous habit of doing the right thing the wrong way. That's how humans work. We adapt. You plan for perfection. We plan for when perfection breaks. A strange silence stretched between them. Then Saravel asked, Why did you really agree to this union? He hesitated. Because I'm tired of people thinking the only thing humans bring to the table is chaos, Elias said. I've seen what we're capable of, the good and the bad. I thought maybe I could show the galaxy something better. She studied him. Idealism does not suit you. Tell that to the half-healed bullet scar on my back. Later that evening, in the cross-cultural psychology lab, they were subjected to a bizarre exercise. Select emotional responses to a series of stimuli, images, words, even musical patterns, all meant to expose fundamental philosophical differences. When an image of a burning settlement appeared, Saravel said, Tragic. Evacuate. Rebuild. Move forward. Elias replied, Tragic. Remember. Mourn. Rebuild stronger. At a sound clip of a Valari elegy, pure mathematical tones arranged in descending octaves, Saravel closed her eyes. Beauty and simplicity. Elias flinched. Sounds like a computer, choking on a violin. Saravel nearly laughed. Nearly. They ended the night in the observation dome, watching Concord Station spin slowly above the atmosphere of Juno Minor, a gas giant reflecting pale violet light. For a long while, they said nothing. Then Elias broke the silence. You know, for someone who's scared of humans, you're pretty good at keeping up with one. I am not scared, Saravel replied. I am cautious. Your species is volatile. We're passionate. You are inconsistent. We're flexible. You are illogical. We're alive. She turned to face him. What do you think you've shown me, Elias Rourke? That maybe a little chaos isn't the end of the world. Maybe it's the beginning of something better. He leaned back on his elbows, looking up at the stars. I used to believe the only way to survive was to shut everything out, he said quietly. After the Centauri Wars, after I lost people, I stopped letting myself care. Then one day, I fixed a comm unit on a derelict scout ship. The AI on board had been singing to itself for years. A song. Just looping. Some broken thing trying to feel alive. He looked at her. Sometimes, broken things are the most human of all. Saravel didn't respond for a while. But her gaze softened just slightly. Your people are loud. Emotionally excessive. And yet, she trailed off. Elias smiled. And yet, she stood. And yet I have not filed a request for reassignment. That must mean something. He laughed. The next morning, An updated report from the Station Oversight Committee appeared on the shared terminal. Subject: Compatibility Assessment. Phase 1 Outcome. While the subjects continue to exhibit significant philosophical and behavioral divergence, their cooperative problem-solving under stress suggests unexpected potential. Recommendation: proceed to next phase. With caution, Saravel closed the report and stared out the viewport. Elias approached with 2 mugs of what passed for coffee on Concord Station. "Careful," he said. "This stuff could burn through armor plating." She took the mug. "Our species survived a 1,000-year civil war. We will survive your coffee." Their hands brushed. Brief. Electric. Neither pulled away immediately. The alien girl is afraid to marry a human until she meets him. Chapter title: Enemies Without, Enemies Within. Word count: 1,200. Chapter 3: Enemies Without, Enemies Within. The sound of alarm klaxons echoed through Concord Station's command tier, deep and rhythmic, like a pulse growing too fast. Elias Rourke woke up instantly, boots hitting the floor before the emergency lighting even activated. "What now?" he muttered, slipping into his jacket and checking the emergency feed on his datapad. Unidentified vessel entering orbit. No transponder. No response to hails. Trouble. He didn't need to guess who the first person he'd be paired with would be. Ambassador Saravel Katir was already standing in the operations chamber by the time he arrived, flanked by 2 Valari guards and analyzing the incoming telemetry with hawk-like focus. "The vessel is not of Valari or human origin," she said calmly, fingers dancing over the holographic console. Profile suggests a black market retrofitting. Possibly mercenary. Elias squinted at the display. "That's not mercenary loadout. That's a gunship with stealth rigging. Who the hell let that thing through perimeter scans?" "Unknown," Saravel replied. "But it is not here by accident." As if to confirm her words, the intruder transmitted a short burst signal, an encrypted code known only to diplomatic high-clearance channels. Saravel froze. "That code," she whispered. "It's Valari. From our Internal Security Directorate." Elias looked at her sharply. "You're telling me your own people are testing us?" "Not testing. Sabotaging. The internal war." Backroom factions on both sides had long opposed the Union Pact. For some humans, the Valari were seen as condescending tyrants. For some Valari, humanity was a threat. Unpredictable, emotional, and dangerously adaptable. Now one of those factions had sent a message. You don't belong together. Why use a stealth gunship for a diplomatic statement? Elias asked. Why not just sabotage us politically? Saravel's expression darkened. Because political failures are quiet. Explosions echo. The intruder ship powered weapons. The station's defense AI kicked into readiness, but Concord Station was designed for symbolism, not war. If the ship launched even a single kinetic torpedo, hundreds could die. Elias turned to Saravel. We need to buy time. Let me talk to them. They won't listen to a human. Then we go together. They stepped into the secure comms room, cameras recording everything, the interspecies betrothed, standing united. A subtle political move, but one that could not go unnoticed. The pirate-style ship finally answered their hail. The screen flickered to life, a Valari male with old battle scars and dead eyes. Commander Tyrak Vel. A former hardliner Saravel knew well. This is an unauthorized incursion, she stated. You will stand down. Tyrak smiled coldly. You've forgotten your place, Saravel. You shame your species with this entanglement. Elias stepped forward. Nice to meet you two. Didn't realize the Valari made war criminals into pilots. Tyrak ignored him. You are a symbol now, Saravel. So I will break the symbol. He cut the transmission. The ship powered weapons again. The defense crisis. Saravel spun toward the tactical officer. Evacuate non-essential personnel to hardened sectors. Shield the embassy wings. Elias pulled her aside. You know what he's doing. He wants you to overreact. Then what do you suggest? Invite him to tea. He looked her dead in the eyes. Let me take a boarding party to that ship. She blinked. That is madness. Exactly. And humans excel at madness. You are not a soldier anymore. No. But I'm still a problem solver. And Tyrak won't expect a human face charging his airlock. She hesitated. You will likely die. Elias grinned. You're starting to sound like my ex. The boarding gambit. He went in with a 5-person human Velari joint team, including Lieutenant Reyes, a former Marine, and Velari security operative Danael, a towering, exosuit-clad warrior with a permanent scowl. As they launched in a stealth shuttle toward the gunship, Reyes murmured, "This is suicide." Elias checked his pulse rifle. "Yeah, but it's symbolic suicide. Very comforting, sir." They breached the underbelly of the enemy ship via a blind spot in its sensor dome, a flaw only Elias would have noticed, having once jury-rigged similar stealth systems during pirate suppression missions. Inside, the halls were dark and narrow. They fought through 2 squads of mercenaries, a brutal, no-frills brawl. Velari stun lances cracked skulls, and Elias found himself blasting a control junction to cause a bulkhead seal, classic improvised human tactics. They reached the bridge just as Tyrak was preparing to fire on the station. "You?" Tyrak growled, seeing Elias. "The animal." "Guilty," Elias replied. "But guess what? Animals bite." He tossed a stun grenade and lunged behind cover. What followed was a short, chaotic firefight. One Elias ended by overloading a conduit and tackling Tyrak into a magnetic restraint field. Aftermath and revelation. Back on Concord Station, Saravel stood watching the docking bay as the boarding team returned. Elias limped off the shuttle, his arm bleeding, his jacket scorched, and his face split in a grin. "You missed the party," he said. She stared at him, then stepped forward. "What you did was illogical, dangerous, and idiotic." He saluted sloppily. "You're welcome." She stepped closer, too close. For the first time, Velari control faltered. "I feared I would lose you." "You almost did," he said quietly. "But we're still here." She nodded once, sharply, but something in her voice softened. "Thank you." The turning point. The incident had rippled far beyond Concord Station. News feeds across Earth, and Velari systems, lit up with footage of Elias standing shoulder to shoulder with Saravel during the crisis. Political factions that had opposed the Union were forced to re-evaluate. The symbol had not broken. It had fought back. A joint address was called the following day. In front of hundreds of diplomats and billions watching live, Elias and Saravel stood together once more. "Unity is not a matter of perfection," Saravel said, her voice calm but resonant. "It is the product of resolve." Elias followed. "We don't agree on everything. We probably never will. But I'd rather fight side by side than go back to fighting face to face." Applause erupted. That night, on the quiet balcony overlooking the Earth-lit side of Concord Station, Saravel joined Elias with 2 cups of synthesized wine, one red, one silver. "A gesture," she said, "of peace, of curiosity." He took the cup, raised it. "To not killing each other." She lifted hers. "To surviving long enough to try." They clinked glasses. For once, no cameras, no councils, just 2 people from distant worlds, learning to lean into the unknown. Her hand brushed his as she took her glass. She didn't pull away. Neither did he. The alien girl is afraid to marry a human until she meets him. Chapter title: The Choice. Word count: 1200. Chapter 4: The Choice. The cold blue light of Juno Minor shimmered faintly through the massive viewport of Concord Station's council chamber. A grand hall built for spectacle, its polished floor reflecting the weight of history and the future balanced on every word spoken within. Today, that future rested on a single, seemingly impossible decision. Could the Union hold? Could 2 species so different find a way to coexist? Or was it all destined to collapse? Ambassador Saravel Katir stood at the front, her elegant posture the embodiment of Velari dignity and resolve. Behind her, the portraits of past Velari leaders glared down, a silent reminder of centuries of tradition, order, and control. Beside her, Elias Rourke, battle-worn but unbowed, felt the weight of a galaxy's expectation pressing down like gravity. The final summit. The council was in session, packed with representatives from every major human and Velari faction, alongside observers from neutral systems. The air was thick with tension, suspicion, and barely concealed hostility. The agenda: ratify the Union Pact, a political, cultural, and military alliance forged on Concord Station, symbolized by the marriage agreement between Saravel and Elias. But the opposing faction had grown bolder. They demanded evidence that the alliance would not weaken either species, that humans would not drag the Valari into chaos, and that Valari order would not suffocate human spirit. Saravel took a deep breath. Esteemed members of the Council, our history is marked by war and division. Yet today we stand at the edge of something new, a bridge between worlds. Elias stepped forward. I'm not a diplomat. I'm not perfect. But I know humans. We fight, we fall, and we get back up. We adapt because we have to, and sometimes because we want to. A ripple went through the chamber. We are different, Elias continued. But different doesn't mean incompatible. It means opportunity. For innovation, for understanding, for strength. Saravel added, the tests, the crises, the sacrifices, they have shown us the truth. Survival demands partnership. A sabotage uncovered. Just as the Council seemed to shift toward acceptance, an urgent alert interrupted proceedings. The head of Valari Security, Commander Den-El, stepped forward, projecting evidence of a conspiracy, a covert plot to assassinate Elias during the summit. The conspiracy reached deep into both species governments, orchestrated by those who feared unity. Gasps echoed. Elias caught Saravel's eye. They were still targets, still vulnerable. The Council erupted into chaos. Accusations flew, alliances frayed. The escape. The chamber security systems locked down. Saravel grabbed Elias's arm. We need to get out. Now. They raced through labyrinthine corridors to the emergency shuttle bay. The station was a fortress, but it had its blind spots, spots only someone like Elias could find. Follow me, he barked, pulling her toward a narrow maintenance tunnel. They ran, evading patrols and automated defenses triggered by the lockdown. The revelation. Safe in the shuttle, Elias accessed the conspiracy files. Names, dates, messages, proof the saboteurs wanted to reignite war, break the Union, and maintain control through fear. Saravel watched him, the weight of her heritage and the hope for a new future colliding inside her. You're reckless, she said softly. And you're cautious. But we balance. He smiled. Exactly. The final decision. Returning to the Council, Elias and Saravel presented their evidence, not just to expose the traitors, but to prove something deeper. Unity isn't naive, Saravel said, her voice strong. It is a choice, one we make every day despite fear, despite history. Elias took her hand. I choose this, not because it's easy, but because it's ours. Human and Valari. Together. A new beginning. The Council, moved by their courage and honesty, ratified the Union Pact. The marriage ceremony proceeded, not as a political charade, but as a genuine union between two species, two souls. As Saravel and Elias exchanged vows under the light of Juno Minor, the assembled crowd saw not just a symbol, but a promise that humanity's unpredictable resilience and the Valari's disciplined grace could forge a future worth fighting for. Epilogue. Months later, on the surface of a newly colonized world, a joint human-Valari settlement, Elias and Saravel walked side by side through a thriving marketplace filled with laughter, color, and hope. They stopped at a small cafe, sharing a drink, human coffee mingled with Valari aromatics. You scared of the future? Elias asked. She smiled, taking his hand. Only because it's unknown. Then let's face it together. She squeezed his hand. Together. And as twin suns set over the horizon, two worlds moved forward, not as enemies, not just allies, but as something more.